Dr Finlay The Further Adventures of a Black Bag, based on the stories by A.J. Cronin and dramatised by Sue Rodwell, starring John Gordon Sinclair, Brian Pettifer and Celia Imrie. The Fever.
The trouble with Finlay is he has too high an opinion of the truth sometimes.
Your son's very poorly, Mrs. Prentice.
And he certainly doesn't know when to keep it to himself.
Will John be all right?
I am sure he will. But he may have to get moved to the isolation hospital if it gets any worse.
My God, what's the matter with him?
He has scarlet fever.
That's serious, isn't it?
Well, it can be.
What should I do?
I want you to keep him isolated for the next few days. Don't let his brother have any contact with him for a wee while if you can manage it.
Well, Robbie's at his grandma's. He's been there almost a month.
Well, he should be safe enough then. I'll drop by again on Thursday, see how John's getting on.
Is it the same thing as Mrs. Mackie's two daughters have got?
It is. Your son's my 7th case in as many days. Make sure he has plenty of fluids and keep him warm. And if you're at all worried, send for me, won't you?
I will. Are you sure he won't have a cup of tea, Doctor?
No, thank you. I'd better get back to the surgery. I have to report this to the medical officer of health. I think this is the makings of an epidemic. That's right, Dr. Snoddy. Another case of scarlet fever this morning. And Dr. Cameron's up at Abbotsford attending a 10-year-old girl who's got all the symptoms as well.
Is that Snoddy on the phone?
Yeah, it is.
You can tell him the Howard girl definitely has the fever.
Did you hear that, Snoddy? It's Dr. Cameron's just come in. He's confirmed our 8th case this week. Aye, well, I'm worried about it. Yes, I have all the details on every patient. I'll bring the files to you this morning. Yes, good morning to you, Doctor.
Don't tell me. Snoddy thinks you're making a mountain out of a molehill.
Not at all. He wants to see the details of all the cases. He obviously means to deal with this outbreak as quickly as possible.
Doesn't sound like the man I know.
Well, maybe.
Off to the market now. I have to get some more of Mrs. Hendry's sausages.
The spicy ones?
Aye, you polish the last lot off in no time.
I'll give you a lift in, Janet. I have to see Dr. Snoddy up at Knox Hill.
That man.
Is there no one has a good word for him?
No one but himself.
At least it seems to be contained in a very small area, thank goodness. All these cases are to the east of town, aren't they?
Apart from the McGregors up at Barlowan.
There's always one rogue in the pack to make our job more difficult, eh, Finlay?
I wonder if the McGregors don't hold the key to this whole outbreak.
In what way?
Well, if we can find out why the McGregor boy has come down with the fever, we can maybe find out how it's being spread.
Maybe.
So I can leave it in your hands, Doctor.
You can, Finlay. Oh, and before we go, would you take some of these leaflets for your waiting room?
Vote Snoddy. You're standing for the council.
It's my civic duty. And I'm sure you've some patient from the Knox Hill ward, so if you wouldn't mind.
Yes, of course.
Algernon John Snoddy, your local independent candidate. Algernon. He kept that very quiet.
We can leave a pile of these on the hall table.
We most certainly can't. I'm not encouraging anyone to vote Snoddy into office.
I think you're misjudging the man.
Am I now?
He's going to tackle this epidemic right away. Together, we'll nip it in the bud. 5 new cases.
I've no doubt there'll be a good few more before it's over.
No news from Snoddy.
Not yet. But to be fair, I suppose we have to give the man time.
We haven't got time. We have to find out how it's being spread. It can't just be from person to person. We've kept the families too isolated for that. There must be something else. Some common factor.
Aye. And it's Snoddy's job to find out what that is.
Maybe I should go and see him again. Find out what's happening.
Dr. Finlay, Mrs. Prentice sent a note. Would you call on her as soon as possible?
I thought John Prentice was on the mend.
So did I.
It's not John.
It's wee Robbie. She sounded very worried.
We have got to find an answer, Cameron, before someone dies.
I'm sorry to call you out so early. You must think I'm making an awful fuss.
No, Mrs. Prentice, you were quite right. Young Robbie's got the fever now.
It's all my fault.
Not at all.
John was so much better, I thought it was safe to bring Robbie home.
You see, you've kept them apart.
I haven't let Robbie see his brother at all since he came home.
I don't think John's the cause of Robbie's fever.
What then?
Well, I wish I knew. Can I ask you some questions?
Of course, Doctor. Anything if it'll help.
Is that tea still on offer?
Well, if you don't mind it without milk. Rob Hendry's not come by yet.
So John's not been out of the house?
Not since he came down with the fever.
You're sure about that?
You told me to keep him in, Doctor, and I have.
And since Robbie's been back, they've not shared cups or plates, towels, anything like that?
Nothing. I've been as careful as I can. It must be in the air, Doctor.
It's not spread like that.
That'll be Rob Hendry. You can have some milk in your tea now.
Morning, Mrs. Prentice. Sorry I'm late.
Better late than never.
Let's fill that can of yours. Hello, it's Dr Finlay, isn't it?
It is. I have to thank you for your fine sausages, Henry.
Oh, they're my Jeannie's doing. She won't even tell me what she puts in them. How's John getting on?
On the mend. It's Robbie I'm worried about now.
Wee Robbie? Oh, poor lad. There's no end to this fever. I've just dropped a churn off at the Talbots, and the whole family's down with it.
Aye, they're my next call.
Mrs. Mackey was telling me her youngest is still very poorly.
You deliver to the Mackeys as well?
I bring milk to most folk this side of the valley. 3 times a week, rain or shine.
Would you stay for a cup of tea?
I'd better not. If I'm late back for my dinner, Jeannie will have something to say.
How is the lass?
Well, keeping me in order as usual. Good day to you, Dr Finlay.
Aye.
Go now.
Good day, Mr. Henry.
Good day to you.
Let me put some milk in that tea of yours now, Doctor.
No, really. It's just fine as it is, thanks. It's in the milk.
The milk.
That's how the infection's being spread. In the Hendry milk. I'm sure of it.
I believe Mr. Hendry has a fine herd of cattle, and I've no doubt that wife of his keeps the place spick and span.
But he's the common factor.
Bonny wee thing, Mrs. Hendry. Don't you think so, Finlay?
I've never met the woman. Look, Hendry delivers to every single family that's gone down with the fever.
And to a good few who haven't.
Aye, but not everyone who comes in contact with scarlet fever develops the illness.
I seem to remember that dimly from my medical training.
I'm sorry, Doctor. It's just that now that we've found the answer, we can stop the fever from spreading.
And what about the McGregors? Surely they're not on Henry's round all the way over in Barlowan?
I don't know. Maybe they picked it up some other way.
Well, Finlay, you've certainly given me plenty to mull over.
Well, I hope you're going to do more than that.
I think I know my job, thank you.
Of course. But isn't there something you can do about the milk right now?
The milk has to be tested.
I can bring you pints of the stuff from any number of patients.
And what will that tell us, Finlay?
It'll prove that...
It'll tell us absolutely nothing of use. The sample has to come direct from the suspected source of the trouble.
So will you get a sample of it?
I most certainly will.
Thank you.
Of course, there's a mountain of red tape to be gone through.
Oh, of course.
I knew you'd understand, Finlay. Before you go, let me just give you an election poster. Yeah?
It's a very fine bow tie you're sporting there, Snoddy.
It'll look just fine in the front window at Arden House.
Mm-hmm. The man won't make a single move without rubber stamping it 20 times.
Snoddy's always been cautious. The most hasty thing he ever did was marry the widow Sinclair, and that took 30 years of wooing.
By the time he gets off his backside, there'll be 100 more cases of the fever.
I don't like to say it, Finlay, but maybe this time he has a point.
Snoddy?
I think you need to be a damn sight more certain of your facts, Finlay, before you go around accusing Rob Hendry.
I am certain.
But it might be a good idea to get some proof first.
All right, I will.
Can I help you?
Oh, God. You made me jump.
Did I? What is it you'd be wanting?
Why, I was just... I was passing.
Where are you now? And there's us a mile away from the main road.
I was looking for my dog, actually.
Your dog? If he's loose and worrying the sheep, I'll...
Oh, no, he's just a little thing. They'd probably eat him. Yes, my name's Finlay.
Dr Finlay.
Aye.
Dr Cameron's partner over at Arden House.
That's right.
The doctor brought me into the world.
I think he brought half the county into the world. Is your father in?
If you mean Rob Hendry, he's my husband.
Oh, I'm terribly sorry.
He's away on his milk round just now.
So you're Jeannie?
I am. Maybe I can help you find your dog.
Oh, no, he'll be back to his basket long since. This looks like a fine farm.
Thank you. Mind it's hard work.
Aye, must be. Dr. Cameron tells me you've a grand herd of dairy cows.
We have.
And you certainly make fine sausages.
Miss Macpherson buys a deal of them from us. Is it you who likes them so much?
Ah, well, we all do.
Even your dog?
My dog? Oh, no, I wouldn't waste them on her. Him, Rufus, it's the... So it's just you and your husband look after the farm?
It is.
It must be hard.
Well, we're both tough enough, Doctor.
And you both do the milking, do you?
Now, why would you be wanting to know that?
Well, I'm just curious. I might have been a farmer myself if I hadn't taken up medicine.
Oh, is that so? You don't look as if you'd make much of a farmer.
Aye, well, maybe not.
Now, I've work to do. I'll tell my husband you called by, Dr. Finlay.
All right. Rufus! Yep. Here, boy! Rufus!
Good God, man, you could have been shot creeping about the place like that.
I think I was safe enough with Jeanie. Snoddy was right, she's a pretty young lass.
Don't let Rob Hendry hear you say that.
Why, jealous, is he?
If a man so much as glances at Jeanie, he'll have his fists out. Isn't that right, Doctor?
It is.
You remember that time he thought you were making a play for Jeanie?
I do, Janet.
That was a terrible black eye he gave you.
Well, you might have warned me before I went up there.
I thought you were going to steal his milk, not his wife.
Of course.
Yes, Janet?
I'm not one to gossip, but folk do wonder why a young girl like Jeanie married a man old enough to be her father.
Why did she?
I wouldn't know, Doctor. Of course he'd be wanting children, but why Jeanie took Rob Hendry on...
Then maybe you can take a guess, Janet.
Well, he's supposed to have a fair bit of money tied up in that farm of his, and she'll have it all when he dies.
That's nothing but tittle-tattle.
So all the men say. But then they usually can't see past a pretty face.
Well, Finlay, I give you full marks for persistence.
Thank you, Doctor.
But you've not been able to bring me a sample.
If you'll come up to the farm with me, make it an official visit.
But it wouldn't be official.
You're not going to do anything, are you?
I'm going to consider what you've told me very seriously indeed.
And then you're not going to do anything, are you?
I've heard you're an excitable man, Finlay.
Oh, have you now?
You're going to be in your bonnet about something, and there's no reasoning with you.
It's fear. That's what's stopping Snoddy taking any action.
Maybe.
Well, what else?
He closes down the Hendry farm, and before you know it, the papers have the story, and they'll make out half the farms in the county are spreading the fever. Folk will stop buying their produce, and an awful lot of people will be ruined.
You think Snoddy would care?
He would if that lost him votes.
And if I do nothing, a child could die. I have to do what I know is right, Doctor.
I'm sure you do, Finlay. But at least be honest with Hendry, face to face.
You don't mind if I feed the pigs while we talk, Doctor? After all, you wouldn't have any of those sausages you like so much if they didn't get fed.
No. I was wondering, have you or your wife been ill at all over the past few weeks, Mr. Hendry?
I thought you'd come to order some milk.
Well, I have come about the milk.
And you're just asking after her health out of politeness, are you?
I need to know.
Why?
It's to do with this outbreak of scarlet fever.
Is that it? We've neither of us had the fever.
You haven't been a bit under the weather recently?
Oh, I had a bit of a sore throat a week or two back, but it was nothing.
Did you have a rash?
I don't remember.
And what about your wife?
What's it to you?
Do you wear those gloves when you're milking?
Of course not. They're just for yard work. Jeanie said you were a fool.
Would you mind taking the gloves off?
Why?
Just trust me, Mr. Hendry. It's important.
I don't see why, but... there you are. My hands are a bit mucky now, I grant you, but I always scrub them before milking if that's what you're worried about.
How long has the skin been flaking like that?
It's just a bit of sunburn.
I don't think so.
What then?
After you've had scarlet fever, when the rash disappears, your skin flakes, just where the itching's been.
It's sunburn, I tell you.
Do you always milk the cows yourself?
I think I've had enough of your stupid questions.
The flakes of skin are infectious, Mr. Hendry.
What do you mean?
They contaminate the milk.
Are you trying to say my milk's bad?
It's been spreading the fever.
Rubbish. Jeannie, come over here. Come and listen to what the doctor's saying.
What is it, Rob?
I'm just trying to explain to your husband.
He says we're poisoning the milk.
What?
You need to close the farm just for a week or two.
Close the... Are you mad?
Just so that we can get rid of the contamination.
I'm telling you, man, there's nothing wrong with our milk. We both drink it. Look! It's as pure and fresh as you could want.
I'll take some too, Rob.
I'd like to have a sample of that milk.
Get off my land, Finlay.
It's important.
Jeannie, fetch my shotgun.
Aye, Rob.
There's no need for that, Mr. Henry.
Do you know what it feels like to have a backside full of pellets, Doctor? Because you're about to find out.
All right, I'm going.
You can run well enough, Finlay.
If Henry thought he'd scared Finlay away for good, he underestimated the man. And maybe I did too.
Snoddy's got to listen to me now.
No, Finlay.
Henry threatened me. What more do you need before you take some action?
It's a very serious matter to shut down a man's business on what may be unfounded conjecture.
If I thought for a moment there was any doubt...
I'm afraid I need some evidence. You say Henry's no rash, no fever?
Not now. He did have.
He told you that?
No, but he had a sore throat.
I've had many a sore throat, Doctor. You going to shut me down?
I might as well.
I beg your pardon, Finlay.
You have to at least look into it. That's your job.
You know, I'm getting mighty tired of you telling me what my job is. There are procedures to go through. As soon as I've heard from Glasgow...
Which could take weeks.
It'll take as long as it takes.
Very well, Snoddy. If you're not going to take any action, I will.
So Finlay rushed headlong into a crisis that divided Leavenford, and almost succeeded in dividing us. All, of course, with the best of intentions.
I don't understand, Doctor.
Just for a wee while, Mrs. Prentice. I'd get your milk from somewhere else.
Why?
Well, there could be a connection between the milk and the scarlet fever.
No. How could that be?
It's just a precaution. We don't want you going down with the fever while you've the two boys to look after.
I don't want to go down with it at all. Does Rob Henry know about his milk?
Well, no.
Then why don't you tell him?
As I say, this is just a precautionary measure. The connection's not proven yet. There are some tests to be done. But in the meantime, I'd advise you not to drink the milk just now.
I won't touch it. Not now, not ever again.
Finlay! Where's Finlay?
I'm sorry, Dr. Cameron. He pushed right past me.
It's all right, Janet. Finlay's not here just now, Mr. Henry.
He's out spreading more lies about me, is he?
He's on his rounds. Can I help?
We've had 5 customers cancelling their milk this afternoon alone.
No, why?
Because of your precious doctor. When I get my hands on him...
Calm down, man.
Calm down? He's going round telling people not to drink our milk. Telling them it's poisoned. And you're saying calm down. Well, I'll tell you something, Cameron. If he goes on spreading these lies, he's going to be sorry he ever came to Leavenford. I promise you that.
It was utterly irresponsible of you, telling your patients not to drink Henry's milk.
It's Henry and Snoddy who are being irresponsible.
For God's sake, man, this could close down his farm.
Aye, and within a week the fever will be gone.
But what if it isn't? What if you're wrong? You'll have ruined the man for no reason at all.
I saw his hands. I saw the skin flaking off them. I know I'm right.
That may not be good enough. Leavenford folk don't like strangers coming in telling them what's right and wrong.
I'm hardly a stranger anymore.
To them, you are. And if you're wrong, Finlay, God help you. And God help this practice. It didn't take long for Leavenford to divide into 2 camps, and by far the greater number didn't approve of what Finlay had done. And it wasn't just the town that was divided.
Did I tell you, Campbell Ross stopped me in the high street yesterday?
I suppose he'd been drinking.
Aye, but he still managed to shout a good epithet or 2 at me. In fact, he used some words I'd never heard before.
I'd just be grateful it was only words. Mrs. Lewis set about me with her umbrella outside the Borough Hall.
Oh, I'm sorry I brought this on you. But I'm not sorry I did what I did.
More tea for you, doctors?
Thank you, Janet.
Will you be wanting some more toast?
Not for me, thanks.
I'm just fine.
You're enjoying your breakfast, Dr Finlay.
Very tasty, Janet.
Well, that's Jeanie Hendry's bacon and sausages you're eating.
Are they now?
She stopped coming to the market because of the gossip, so I went specially up to the farm to buy them.
Oh, thank you, Janet.
And I've not gone down with a fever?
Well, I wouldn't expect you to. It's not carried by the meat.
Oh, stuff and nonsense. I've got the washing up to do.
You're not going to eat up your breakfast, Finlay.
I'm not so hungry suddenly, knowing where it's come from.
You just said it yourself. The bacon and sausages won't be infected.
Well, it's not that. It's just if Jeanie knew they were for me, I wondered what she might have done to them.
Things stayed the same for several days. Snoddy sat at his desk up at Knox Hill considering the matter. He didn't want folk thinking Finlay was forcing his hand. And while he considered, the inevitable happened.
There's a message from the Hendry farm. Jeanie's been taken ill.
I don't suppose Henry wants to see me. Dr Cameron had better attend to it when he gets back.
No, Doctor, he specially asked for you. He was very insistent.
Do you think he'll be greeting me with both barrels of his shotgun?
Maybe you should wait for Dr Cameron.
No, Janet. I suppose I've got to confront the man sometime.
It's the scarlet fever, isn't it?
I'm afraid it is.
Oh, if I've brought this on you, Jeanie.
Don't be silly, man.
I wanted you here, Doctor, because I know you'll be honest with us.
Rob, you get along to Barlowan.
Barlowan? You don't deliver milk to the McGregors.
We used to before you... Well, before the trouble.
What they didn't drink, Jock turned into cheese and Jeanie sold it on the market. It's very tasty. I'm to pick up the last of the cheese this afternoon. They cancelled their milk when they heard Jeanie was poorly. I wanted to ask...
You to go now, Rob.
I have to ask him, Jeanie.
What's that, Mr Henry?
Is it in our milk? The fever? Have I done this to Jeanie?
I just couldn't tell him.
Even after all you've said?
I didn't want to give the man any more pain. He looked so broken. No one's taking the Hendry milk just now anyway, and by the time Jeanie's better, the danger will have passed.
But Jeanie got worse, and for some reason Finlay seemed to blame himself.
There, Jeanie, my dear. Don't fret.
She's a very high temperature, Mr Henry, and she's delirious because of it.
This is my fault.
Well, let's not worry about whose fault it is. Let's just get your wife better.
If Jeanie dies, I don't know what I'll do.
She's a fighter, isn't she?
She is that.
Then between the three of us, we'll pull her through.
How bad is Jeanie?
It's touch and go.
You're doing all you can, Finlay.
Maybe I've done enough already, and that's the trouble.
What do you mean?
Sometimes I wonder if I brought this on the Henrys. I was so sure I was right that, well, it somehow made their milk bad.
That's just superstitious nonsense, man.
Dr Snoddy to see you, Dr Finlay.
Oh, not now.
So he's come down off that fence of his.
Oh, and Dr Finlay.
Janet?
I'm
Yes?
sorry I doubted you.
An apology from Janet. You want to get that bottled, Finlay?
Finlay, Cameron, good morning to you.
Snoddy.
Doctor?
Most unfortunate news about Mrs Henry.
It is.
No doubt you've been up at the farm this morning.
Yes?
I'm going there myself.
Why?
To close it down, of course.
No.
In light of these developments, it's my duty. And it'd be most useful if you could keep Mr Henry occupied while I carry out those duties, Finlay.
So you don't get Hendry's fist in your face, you mean?
The less unpleasantness there is...
I don't suppose...
What, Finlay?
Well, the farm will be closed anyway while Jeanie's ill. Henry's going to be spending every minute with her.
And your point?
I just wondered if you could see your way to not making the closure official.
Why on earth not? It's what you've been nagging me to do for weeks now.
Aye, I know, but Henry's got enough to put up with at the moment. If the test showed that his milk was definitely the cause of Jeanie's fever, and she dies, I doubt he'd ever get over it.
Are you telling me you think the milk just might not be the cause of the trouble, Finlay?
I'm not saying that at all.
Because if you were to withdraw your allegation, I might be able to reconsider the matter. Well?
It's possible I was wrong about the milk.
Surely not.
I said it's possible.
The young doctor admits to being fallible after all.
So you'll leave the farm open?
Oh, no, I couldn't possibly do that.
You said you'd reconsider.
I said I might. But at the end of the day, I have to do my duty, as you're always telling me, Finlay.
Henry scarcely seemed to notice while the no entry signs were put up and the farm gates padlocked.
And there's to be no produce of any kind leaving the farm until further notice. Do you understand that, Henry?
Aye, now leave me be with my wife, will you?
The results of the test will be through by the end of the week.
Go, damn you!
Very well, as long as you fully realise
Get
the
out of here,
importance...
Snoddy. I'm sorry it's come to this, Henry.
The farm was all I had to give Jeannie. I know she won't want to stay with an old man like me when she's well. But that doesn't matter, Doctor. As long as she does get well, nothing else matters at all.
You must have some rest, man.
Do you think she's looking better?
Aye, a little.
There now, my love. Don't fret.
Finlay was up at the farm night and day. It was almost a personal crusade for him to make Jeannie better, and she seemed to rally. So it was a bitter blow when Jeannie slipped away early one morning.
I'm so sorry, Henry.
It should have been me, Finlay. It should have been me. Oh, will you tell him to go away? I don't want to see anyone.
Still here, Finlay.
What is it you want?
I have some news for Henry.
Aye, well, you can tell me.
It'll interest you, as a matter of fact. The test results have come through. You'll be pleased to hear you were right. The milk was infected.
No, Snoddy. That's the last thing I want to hear.
After the funeral, Rob Hendry just walked away. Nobody knows where he went, but he left the farm to fall into ruin. There was no one wanted to buy it. You can still see the remains of the farmhouse and some outbuildings, but if Finlay ever has to pass that way, he gives the old Hendry farm a very wide berth indeed. Oh, and at the election, Snoddy squeezed in by 13 votes.
In Dr Finlay, The Further Adventures of a Black Bag, Dr Finlay was played by John Gordon Sinclair, Dr Cameron by Brian Pettifer, and Janet by Celia Inry. Dr Snoddy was played by David McHale, Mrs Prentice by Sharon Maharaj, Hendry by John McGlynn, and Jeannie by Tracy Wiles. The episode was dramatised by Sue Rodwell and produced and directed in Bristol by Jeremy Howe and Viv Beebe.